Thank you, Ben. Yeah, just to, you've been hosting us for 5 years, and we're really appreciative of that. Actually, Apologetics Forum, we started that 10 years ago this month in Arlington, Washington, and we've been bringing in speakers to a number of different churches once a month. Our speaker tonight, of course, is Dr. Frank Sherwin. I'll introduce him in a bit. Just a little bit about the Apologetics Forum. There's a brochure out there on the table. You may want to take a look at that. Our mission, and as Pastor Ben was mentioning, is to help equip believers in the defense of the faith. We need to be able to defend what we believe, and that's what we're all about. And we bring speakers in to help us and you do that. So we... Dr. Sherwin, actually, he's, if you look at the flyer on the back table, you'll see that he's speaking in 6 different churches and 2 Christian schools this weekend. And you happen to be the first church, so you get to fire your questions at him after his talk first. And so we're really appreciative of that. We actually have him going to another church in Lake Stevens, Cornerstone Bible Church, also up the road here. And so, 6 different churches. I want to highlight one event, and that is on Saturday morning, we're going to do a mini conference. Well, Frank will speak on 2 different topics having to do with Earth designed for life. And he'll have 2 talks on that topic. One is on wonderful oceans, and the other is on hummingbirds by design. And then some of you may be aware that we also have a youth night on Saturday night, and that's also in Arlington. I think Pastor Ben may have mentioned that to you. I know you guys have been very busy, but you've been at some of these as well. So there are flyers on all these events on the back, and of course you can go to our website, which is apologeticsforum.org, and get all that information. The other event I want to mention is some of you have been on a tour of Dry Falls. We sponsor tours to Dry Falls and Mount St. Helens because they're both examples of recent changes in the earth, which point to a young earth rather than a slowly changing earth. So there's information about that on the table as well. You can go to our website, also call Ron Payne. His information is on the website, and he will lead tours like that. So let me introduce then, one more thing. We have a sign-up sheet. If you want to get our mailing list and find out what's coming next, there's a sign-up sheet on the table. And we have a lot of resources on the back tables there as well. Apologetics Forum has 3 tables there, and Frank Sherwin from ICR will be talking about what they have to offer. ICR, by the way, the Institute of Creation Research, founded by Dr. Henry Morris, I think more than 50 years ago now. And I think, Frank, you've been with them not that long, but for quite a long part of that time. And so we're really appreciative of Frank being there. Frank has a bachelor's degree in biology, a master's degree in zoology, and he has an honorary doctorate from Pensacola College in Florida, which I'm sure some of you know about. So he's well versed in what the issues of the day are, and tonight he's going to speak on evolution. Is evolution possible? Did it happen? Frank, explain that. Let's welcome Frank.
Okay, thank you very much, Heinz. And good evening, Calvary Chapel. It's I just enjoy so much being in Calvary Chapel because with the Institute for Creation Research, there are a number of churches that are excited about what ICR does. But you know what, Pastor Ben, at the top of the list is Calvary Chapels. And just to let you know, I went to Hawaii. I know suffering for the Lord, but I went to Hawaii and spoke at a half dozen Calvary Chapels in Hawaii. And let me tell you, between surfing, it was a wonderful time. Not really, I don't surf, but it is good to be here. Good to be in the Pacific Northwest. I'm a Chicago native, and so I do like to get out and around, and I just love the Pacific Northwest. Let me tell you something really quick. We at the Institute for Creation Research in the Dallas area have been having triple-digit temperatures for a month, and we're tired of it. And 2 nights ago, it was raining, a nice, heavy rain. It was enough to make a Baptist shout. And so, thank you. Okay, thank you. Good. And so we did have some rain there, and it was just terrific. And so it reminds me of Acts 14:17. Don't look it up now, but Acts 14:17. Some of you are taking notes. I appreciate that. So tonight we're going to talk about human evolution, the strange idea that says that you and I came from a fish. And what I like to say is, as we say in Texas, I'm agin it. I don't think the scientific evidence there, and certainly the biblical evidence isn't there either. So let's go ahead and jump right in. This is an apologetics forum, and I do appreciate Heinz bringing ICR to come and speak. That's wonderful, and we are very honored to be here, Heinz. And Pastor Ben, thank you so much. Remember what the Apostle Peter says, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts and be ready always to give an answer. To give an answer, that's the word apologia, and apologetic. In other words, knowing why you believe what you believe. Now, we all have a worldview, don't we? Shake your head like this. Yeah, we all have a worldview. We all have a worldview that describes where we came from, what our purpose in life is, and where we're going when we die. That's part and parcel of what we call a worldview. Here's a quick question this evening. Who should have the most well thought out and articulate worldview? Christians. Bing, bing, bing. A for the evening. Thank you. Christians, okay? We should have this apologetic the Apostle Peter is talking about, knowing why we believe what we believe. Do you believe in creation this evening? I certainly hope so. Now, why do you believe in creation as opposed to evolution? That's one of the purposes and the functions of the Institute for Creation Research. We help the person in the pew to have this apologetic, to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and with fear. In other words, folks, it's not a knockdown, drag-out fight, and you will understand the ministry of ICR, we're not attacking anybody. All we're doing is showing the Christian that you have a good reason for your faith, especially when it comes to science. Now, I believe that science and the Bible go together, Pastor, just like butter and bread. Science and the Bible are inextricably linked. They are inseparable, just like politics and corruption. You just can't separate them. And I learned that very, very quickly. I got saved in the Navy during the Vietnam War, if you can believe that. I was off the coast of Vietnam, and I was talking to navigators. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Navigator Ministry out of Colorado Springs. Okay, some of you have. And they had an excellent apologetic, and they shared with me, and to make a long story short, I got saved. After I got saved, the Lord gave me a very insane interest in the biological sciences, which I did not have prior to that. When I was in high school, I got a D in high school biology. I got a 68%. But you know, when I got saved, the Lord kind of flicked a switch. And so here I am this evening. I'm what you call an invertebrate zoologist. Kind of early in the evening be talking like that. But specifically, I study parasites. And you don't have to go to France to study parasites. Oh, thank you. And so in my research in Colorado, I went up to higher altitudes of the mountains of Colorado with my shotgun, and I shot 35 tree swallows, those pretty little tree swallows, just blew them out of the air with this shotgun. And then I investigated them and found that they were all infected with parasites, every last one of them. And I discovered a new species. And so, folks, what do you get to do when you discover a new species? You get to name it. Well, folks, by this time, you understand that I'm an incurable romantic. Yes, well, anyway. And I decided, hey, I discovered a new species of parasite. It's a nematode, these small white worms. And so I thought, boy, I'm going to name it after my wife. Now, the reason is not what you think. The reason is because I wanted to get her name in the scientific literature. So I went home and I told her, sweetheart, I discovered this new species of parasite. It's a nematode, and I'm going to name it after you. When I woke up, she told me that there was no way that, and so anyway, I didn't name it Acuaria Jani Feltii because Janice Felty was her name before we were married. So anyway, she said no to that, so I named it Acuaria coloradensis. Why do I call it coloradensis? Well, yeah, see how easy science is? Science is so easy. Yes, coloradensis, because I found it in Colorado. Folks, let's go ahead and move right along. Man was created. Genesis chapter 2 says, "And the Lord formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." Man was created uniquely and does not have an animal ancestry, as much as the evolutionists want to convince us that we came from a fish. And like I said, I'm against it. The evidence is not there scientifically. Well, Frank, 40% of a fish basically is the exact same DNA. 40% of the DNA of a fish is the exact same DNA as people. Is that evidence for evolution? No, because fish eat food. What kind of food? Proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, okay? And therefore, they're going to have enzymes that break down proteins, carbohydrates, and fat. Did you just eat here this evening in church? It was excellent, by the way. Yes. And so you ate proteins, carbohydrates, and fat. In other words, you have the same enzymes that fish have. And by the way, rats and mice, and just go down the laundry list of animals. They all have the same enzymes that code for coded by DNA so that you can break down that food. That doesn't mean a common ancestor. It means a common designer. Okay, so that's the thing to keep in mind. Not a common ancestor, but a common designer. Though animals also possess the breath, that's the neshama, and the soul, nephesh, man's breath, the same word as spirit, and soul were imparted to him by God directly, rather than indirectly as imparted to the animals. So this is just a very quick overview when it comes to the creation account of man as we read in Genesis. So, in American public schools, your tax dollars are being taught that children learn the top one there, that top diagram. Through millions and millions of years of death, disease, bloodshed, pain, yes, and parasites, man's existence showed up from an ape-like ancestor over these millions of years, and random genetic mutations that we call mutations, okay, genetic mistakes. But the biblical worldview, remember, we're in a war of the worldviews, aren't we? That's the evolutionary worldview that is taught to this next generation of children here in the United States thanks to our tax dollars. But the biblical worldview says, no, God was created man, and we were 100% from the beginning, but through the actions of our first parents, sin entered into the world, and we now die physically. And we have all sorts of terrible diseases, yes, and parasites as well. See, in the creation account in Genesis chapter 1, God tells us he created, right? And he created after their kind. Yeah, it's just us here this evening, so you can sing it out, after their kind. How many times did God say that he created after their kind in Genesis chapter 1? Answer, 10 times. 10 times God told us in one chapter he created after their kind. Do you suppose maybe he's trying to tell us something? Just like when we're parents and we repeat to our kids, right? Because we want them to understand. Same thing with God. He said 10 times that he created after their kind. Do you know what he was telling us in Genesis 1? That he didn't use evolution. That he did not use evolution. He created after their kind. And then in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 1, we see a corruption of the creation. Remember the very first words of Satan? Genesis 3 and verse 1, yea, hath God said. In other words, the first words out of Satan's mouth is to question God's authority. So number 2 this evening, that's a corruption of the creation. So we have the creation, Genesis 3:1, we have the corruption of the creation, and then God cursed the earth, didn't we? He cursed the earth with weeds, thorns, thistles. You remember reading that, don't you? But also I believe he also cursed the earth with parasites. So the parasites were free living in a very good world. They were free living. They were not part of infecting people, plants, or animals. But then when God cursed the earth, they became parasitic. There's lots of good evidence for that, by the way. And so God cursed the earth with weeds, thorns, thistles, probably genetic mistakes that we call mutations, parasites, definitely telemarketers. And so we have, what do we have here, class? We have the creation, corruption, curse, and then in Genesis chapter 6 through 8 and into chapter 9, we find the catastrophe. What catastrophe is that? Genesis flood. Very good, the Genesis flood. So let's look at the 4 C's really quickly. What's the first C, class? Creation, corruption, curse, and catastrophe. So that's really kind of a 4-point outline of the major points there in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. So is human evolution fact? You notice I put it in quotation marks there. Because human evolution is, what do they call that? An oxymoron. Oxymoron. It's like saying airline food. Okay, or jumbo shrimp. Okay, but these are going nowhere. So is human evolution, quote unquote, a fact? Well, it's the most hotly debated topic in 2023. When it comes to a book that turned the Western world upside down, that book right there on the screen, written by a naturalist by the name of Charles Darwin in 1859. In 1859, the naturalist Charles Darwin turned the Western world upside down by publishing this infamous book on the origin of species. It was very, very popular in Darwin's day when people wanted to get out from under the thumb of God. And Darwin gave them an opportunity to do just that. In other words, why was Darwin's book so popular in his day and also today? The answer is, it's not because it was so scientific. It was not a scientific book very much. He talked a little bit about the variation, for example, of wild rock pigeons, but pigeons have always been pigeons. See how easy science is? Pigeons have always been pigeons. Dogs have always been dogs, right? We have these huge Mexican Chihuahuas and these little bitty Great Danes that ladies carry in their purse and everything in between, right? And those really mutated dogs are called poodles. Okay. But the point is, the reason why Darwin's book was so popular was, and listen to this, he explained creation without a creator. Charles Darwin in 1859 explain creation without a creator. And that's what people were wanting to hear in his day and also today as well. And so Darwin's book was not scientific. It explained creation without a creator. That's why it turned the Western world upside down. But when it comes to a hotly debated topic, as we're talking about human origins, look at this. From a New Staff Science News website is very reputable, but it's very secular, extremely secular Science News. And look what they said way, way back in the year 2023. They said, quote, the origin, we're talking about the origin of species, right? By the way, what's one thing Darwin never talked about in his infamous book? Answer, the origin of the species. He never talked about the origin of species. Look at this quote. The origin of the hominines, that is, the African apes and people, is among the most hotly debated topics in paleoanthropology. Wow. We are being hit over the head with the alleged fact of human evolution, and yet this was said way back in 2023. It's one of the most hotly debated topics in paleoanthropology. You know what I would suggest this evening? I would suggest that this quote be put in American taxpayer-paid public school biology textbooks. Who is paying for those biology textbooks? Raise your hand, please. If you're a taxpayer, you are paying for those biology textbooks. And I think that we should have an opportunity to be able to put quotes like this somewhere in that textbook to let the students know that human evolution is hardly an established fact. And even evolutionists are saying that. Do you see any Bible verses in this quote? Any reference to religion or God? No, this is by a very, very anti-creation website. Moving right along, human evolution is taught as a fact in taxpayer-paid public schools, but look at this, human evolutionists don't know how, when, what, or where. But other than that, human evolution's a fact. Okay, just missing out on some of the details there. Look at this. Over the past 15 years, almost every part of our story, see the above bold words there, Every assumption about who our ancestors were and where we came from. Well, wait a minute, that's how, when, what, and where. And where we came from has been called into question. This is by a science writer in New Scientist magazine, a British publication, very, very anti-creation. And that was said in 2017, fairly recently. Over the past 15 years, almost every part of the human evolution story has been called into question. So what do we really know about human evolution? Well, New Scientist magazine, again, the same publication, very secular, said just 2 years ago, we need to fully explore the planet to understand our species' origins. Well, when are you going to get that done doing that? Just explore the whole planet, and then we'll get this human evolution story established. Well, we'll never be able to do that. So I thought that was kind of an interesting quote. Hawkins of MSN.com, hardly a creationist website, said, new human fossil discovery has everyone questioning the origin of mankind. What was the name of Darwin's infamous book? Origin of Species. Everyone questioning the origin, there's that word, of mankind. Quote, now that we've shown that such environments were present at least 10 million years before bipedalism, that is walking on two legs, evolved, look at this, we need to really rethink human origins too. And that was said this year, just this year, at the University of Michigan, hardly a bastion of Christianity. So I think this is interesting. You're getting quotes like this. So folks, tonight I don't have to go down list by list and listing all these so-called missing links and Australopithecus afarensis and Homo natali and some of these other types when we have quotes like this. They're really, really questioning the very fundamentals, the very fabric of human evolution. Newsweek magazine, 2017, how and when modern humans first emerged as a species is a what? A major unanswered question in, there it is, paleoanthropology, because the fossil record is incomplete. Whether it's incomplete or not makes no difference. The fact is that it's an unanswered question. Then the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2014 said the timing and nature of early modern human dispersal out of Africa has long been disputed among scholars with competing theories or models about how and when it all occurred. How and when? That's pretty much the whole ball of wax. Interesting. Well, I keep talking about tax dollars because I get kind of hot under the collar when I know that my tax dollars are being used to teach the next generation that they are highly evolved animals. Folks, should we be surprised when they start acting like animals? That's what they're taught. There's plenty of room in high school textbooks to list what is not known regarding human evolution and even the problems of this idea. So let me emphasize something. If you're a public school teacher, you must teach evolution as a fact. You may not teach any problems with evolution, and they are legion, I can assure you. You may not teach any kind of alternative to evolution. So if you're not allowed to teach an alternative to evolution, if you're teaching, you must teach evolution as a fact, and you cannot list any problems with evolution, then you have taken a giant step outside of the field of education and into the field of indoctrination. Indoctrination is exactly right. And as we say in Texas, I'm against it. Okay? I think students should be taught good science, but they shouldn't be indoctrinated. The time at which the hominid line diverged from that of African apes, that is, gorillas and chimps, is controversial. Times of as much as 20 million and as little as 4.5 million years ago are suggested. And this is in Allaby's Dictionary of Zoology just 3 years ago. And once again, there have wide variation of time there, and it's certainly controversial. So this would be a good quote to put in American taxpayer-paid public schools. We note that, like that of other hominins, the evolution of Homo, we belong to Homo sapiens. Homo is a genus name, sapiens is a species name. The evolution of Homo is highly controversial. Not just controversial according to these 5 evolutionists writing in a 2020 university-level zoology text, but is highly controversial. Let's put this also in American public school textbooks. So human evolution certainly is messier than we thought. The human family tree has been shaken up at least 4 times in 2019 alone, a fact that indicates how fragile and problematic the evidence for human evolution is. For example, look at this from Nature magazine. Nature is at the top of the line. When you quote from Nature magazine, you're quoting from that's it, it's the ultimate. Nature magazine and maybe Science magazine as well. Ancient cranium discovered in Ethiopia suggests early hominin evolutionary tree is messier than we thought. Well, that's certainly true. And speaking of messy, the human saga we now understand is far more intricate than scholars of yore envisioned. The tidy troops of prehistory have collapsed under the weight of evidence. Look at this. There is no single missing link that bridges apes and humankind. Let me repeat that. There is no single missing link that bridges apes and humankind. And this was said just 3 years ago. No drumbeat march of progress toward a predestined goal. Our story, said Kate Wong, is complicated, messy, and random. And let me tell you something, Scientific American is no friend of the creationist, not by any stretch. So these are really incredible quotes and very enlightening quotes, I would say, when we're talking about so-called human evolution. A key piece of the human family tree is still missing. Can I stop right there? Still missing. You know, the hallmark of a good scientific theory, a good scientific model, is to make predictions. Right? So if we have a scientific model, and if we have the scientific model established, then we should be able, on occasion, to make predictions in regard to that scientific model. We believe that in the beginning God created. We don't believe we came from some ape-like ancestor, and therefore, when we look at the so-called human family tree that you see there that is constantly changing, we would say, based on the creation science model, this the key piece of the missing tree will always be missing. That's a prediction I'm making. So show us to be false. Show creation to be false. Start finding those missing links. A key piece of the human family tree is still missing, waiting to be found. We predict they'll never be found. Humans' most recent ancestor, the species that predated our kind, remains shrouded in mystery. I appreciate they're making this admission in the printed word. Anthropologists still don't know what species humans evolved from. Just 3 short years ago is when they said that in Discover magazine, a very popular magazine. But the diagram that you see there behind me is constantly changing, always full of dotted lines, which means they don't have the evidence that the missing links are missing. So what's the key tool used in human evolution studies? Well, I got to admit, it's imagination. Some people get mad when I say that. But that really is. That's the key tool used in human evolution studies. I like this cartoon by Stayscal out of Chicago. And he wrote about young Charles Darwin. Here's the nurse or the nanny reading to young Charles Darwin. The princess kissed the frog and it changed into a handsome prince. And young Charles Darwin says, boy, when I grow up, I'm going to write stuff like that. I thought it was funny. But as I say, sometimes people get upset, and that's good. It's good to get upset, right? Imagination. One's imagination must fill up the very wide blanks. That's interesting. Now, that's in quotation mark. One's imagination must fill up the very wide blanks. Who said that? Charles Darwin. Okay? So I guess there's something to that cartoon that you saw previously. In his letter to Asa Gray on early September of 1857, One's imagination must fill up the very wide blanks. The evolutionary paleontologist Peter Dodson has a video in the Perot Museum in Dallas, and we were members of the Perot Museum. I get lots of ammunition for our side, the creation science side, by going to the Perot Museum, which is overtly secular, absolutely secular. But anyway, I go there a lot. And Peter Dodson said, I have to tell you that imagination is a very, he said it twice, very, very important trait for paleontologists. A paleontologist class is somebody who studies fossils, okay? And Peter Dodson, who's no creationist, he said imagination is a very, very important trait for paleontologists. Well, the Webster's New World Dictionary for imagination, the definition is the act or power of forming mental images of what is not present. Interesting. Evolutionists disagree, of course, insisting there's clear evidence that people came from lower life forms. And so very quickly tonight, well, let's go ahead and look at some of those. And I call them urban legends in human evolution studies. They're simply nothing more than urban legends. And so I don't know if that's a Loch Ness Monster or whatever other creature is there, but I thought that'd be kind of interesting. By the way, Loch Ness Monster, they'll never find it, because it doesn't exist. They've been looking at Loch Ness Monster who knows how long, but if you kind of look at it, you find that every deep water lake in the world has its monster stories. Like here in America, we have the Lake Champlain. Guess what they have? Champ, the monster of Lake Champlain, but they've never found that either. But there's visions, there's sightings and stuff like that. Anyway, let's look at some of the anatomical urban legends, and that is back problems. Now, I'm not saying back problems are an urban legend. I'm not saying that. But the reason they say we have back problems today is because of human evolution. So it has to do with the evolution of bipedalism. As we slowly came up from the ground and started walking on two legs, many chiropractors, and if you're a chiropractor here, I'm not going to paint with a wide brush, but I know many chiropractors that say the reason why we have back problems is because of human evolution, and that slowly but surely over the supposed millions of years, that's how, as you can see in that diagram there, we have the back problems. Oh, he can walk upright, he just hasn't had his coffee yet. I thought it was funny. The first recorded upright walking human. Ta-da! So, question of the evening, is the evolution of bipedalism, that is upright walking, the cause of our back problems? That's a valid question to ask this evening, okay? I would say absolutely not. Absolutely not. Exactly why and when our ancestors stood upright and started moving around on 2 feet is still shrouded in what, class? Shrouded in mystery, okay? Of course, it's always going to be shrouded in mystery. BBC 2016. And then Richmond said in the American Journal of Physical Anthropology, some of the most long-standing questions in paleoanthropology concern how and why human bipedalism evolved. Well, it didn't evolve. We have been created to walk on 2 legs. Up to 90% of all Americans suffer at least one debilitating episode of back pain during their lives. 90%. Wow. Back pain is one of the leading causes of disability around the world. In the U.S. alone, it cost $635 billion. I triple-checked that. I couldn't believe that number. $635 billion per year in medical bills and lost productivity. That was said in 2018. Low back pain, a major global challenge, written in the very prestigious British publication, The Lancet. So here's an article that says, why our bags, B-A-G-S, why our bags are wrecking our backs. NBC News said recently, heavy backpacks or bags can lead to back problems and poor posture. Okay, that's I think a hint number 1 as to what is causing our back problems. And it doesn't have a thing to do with evolution. Heavy backpacks or bags can lead to back problems. About 5,000 children visit emergency rooms each year because of backpack-related injuries, according to Orthopedics Institute. So yeah, when kids start carrying these really heavy backpacks, and you kind of see them around there at school, Obviously, it's going to cause problems with their back, but it's got nothing to do with Darwinian evolution, absolutely nothing. So what is the cause of back problems? Well, lack of exercise, too much sitting, obesity. Here's a big one: bad habits and injury. Bad habits and injury. Other reasons that are not due to evolution. And that's why in Coppell, Texas, and it's just a stone's throw from where I live in Flower Mound, Texas. I know folks live in Coppell. They put together this Veridesk. I don't know if you've heard about or have a Veridesk where you work, but I think it's very, very effective in helping our backs to maintain good posture, and so that we don't have these debilitating back problems. That, and of course, exercise as well. So the Veridesk. Well, here's something I like to call ABC: anything but creation, or anything but Christianity. And so instead of saying that man has been designed and created to walk upright, this evolutionist said in 2019, exploding stars may trigger ecological changes on Earth, which might in turn have led to humans to embrace the two-legged lifestyle. You got to be kidding. We started walking on two legs because a star exploded way, way out there. Well, like I say, ABC. And then at the University of Kansas also said this, 2019, the same article, initiating an avalanche of electrons in the lower atmosphere and setting off a chain of events that feasibly ended with bipedal hominins. So it's all due to electrons in the lower atmosphere due to an exploding star ever so many millions and millions of years ago. So it's kind of a stretch, I think you'd agree. Well, how about the vestigial organs, such as our teeth, our wisdom teeth? As recently as 1971, the Encyclopedia Britannica claimed that there were more than 100 vestigial organs in man. Have you heard about that? Boy, that's what I was taught when I was in high school back in I was taught all about these vestigial organs, okay? And Scientific American 2016 fairly recently said, quote, and of course, humans are replete with useless vestigial structures, a distinctive sign of our evolutionary ancestry, such as, what's Exhibit A? Wisdom teeth, there you go, our wisdom teeth. Well, there's a lot more to it than what they're saying. Wisdom tooth removal has nothing to do with evolution and everything to do with diet. Processed and refined foods in modern societies have resulted in our reduced use of wisdom teeth. Lots of third world countries where people eat very rough diet with lots and lots of fiber and chew on tough items and all that, unlike here in the United States where the toughest thing we sink our teeth into is a large Mac. Well, I guess they call them Big Macs in Washington here, but in Texas we call them large Macs. But that's the most robust thing we probably chew on. Maybe a carrot now and then. But really, what happens is that if you don't use your back teeth, then it's going to cause problems. These third world countries don't have problems with the wisdom teeth like we do because they use those teeth. And they use them every day, and they use them a lot. They don't have the problems that we have. It's got nothing to do with evolution. A researcher concluded that most prophylactic third molar extractions are medically unnecessary, and the proper course is to clinically and radiographically monitor the teeth to determine pathological changes that indicates a clear need for extraction. So just monitor the teeth as they erupt. And then if it causes problems, go ahead and take them out. But don't take them out just for the sake of taking them out. Just like if you're as old as I am, I remember a lot of my fellow children in the grade school in Illinois, they just got their tonsils taken out as a matter of, it was just a thing to do. Everybody got their tonsils taken out because, after all, those are vestigial structures. Fortunately, I still have my tonsils. Then, in the 1980s and into the 90s, they realized just how important your tonsils were as lymphatic organs. Lymphatic organs help to program lymphocytes, which are a type of white blood cell. Well, what about tooth origin? The details of when and where and why and how teeth first appeared still elude consensus. And that's not a creationist who said that. That was Peter Ungar in 2010 in his book, Mammal Teeth. So they don't know when, where, why, or how teeth first appeared. We would say as creationists, teeth have always been, help me out. Teeth, yeah, very good. Teeth have always been teeth. Whether you find them amphibians or, reptiles or just fish or whatever else, teeth have always been teeth. And so, yeah, teeth are teeth. Whether you find them in shark or zebras, they've always been teeth in the fossil record. How about the coccyx, or they call it the tailbone, those four fused bones at the base of your spinal column? The coccyx. Have you ever slipped on the ice out here and fallen on your tailbone? Yaha, it do hurt, okay? And you're really nothing you can do. You can't wear a cast or something like that. You have to wait until it heals by itself and moan and groan, and you can't roll over, you can't walk, you really can't do anything. The vertebral column is a linear row of bones that supports the head and its beginnings and must end somewhere. Okay, that's the key. So when your spinal column, it starts at the foramen magnum, the base of your skull, and then goes all the way down to your coccyx. So it's got to end somewhere. And wherever it ends, evolutionists will be sure to call it a vestigial tail. That's not a very compelling argument. Creationists offer a friendly challenge to the evolutionist, okay? So you see the coccyx there, right at the tip where it says coccyx. Those are the four fused bones. And if truly the coccyx, your tailbone, is useless, then we at the Institute for Creation Research, listen, we have offered this challenge to the evolutionary community. The evolutionists should get a volunteer and go to the hospital, and we will go ahead and pay for their coccyx to be removed because, hey, it's just a useless vestige, okay? And ICR will pay for it. So you heard it here tonight, okay? We are making the offer. Go ahead and get a volunteer, whoever that poor individual is going to be, get that coccyx removed, and we will pay for it. But there's one thing we won't pay for, and that's the diapers that individual will have to wear for the rest of their lives. Diapers? Yeah, well, see, what you learn about in biology is your skeleton has a lot of functions, and one of the functions of your skeleton is the attachment of muscles. So you have a skeletal bone, it's going to have muscles attached to it, right? So you can do this, right? Well, what are the muscles in the coccyx? I don't want to get too graphic here, but the muscles in your coccyx are attached to muscles that control the defecation reflex, helping you to poop. Okay, and if you remove those four fused bones at the base of the spinal cord, guess what? I'll leave it up to your imagination, but I will tell you that we're not going to buy diapers for you because it's going to get pretty expensive. Okay, nobody's ever took us up on that. What about human saliva and chimp saliva? Well, are they the same? Have you heard the argument? It's an it's an urban legend. It's an urban legend that says that chimpanzees and people have 98.5% the same DNA. That is absolutely false. That's an urban legend. That is not correct. But human saliva and chimp saliva should be the same, but they are very different. Salivary proteome is a type of protein that is found in the saliva. Humans have about 99.5, maybe 99% of our saliva is water, just water. But you can see the saliva for humans over here on the left-hand side of the screen. Chimpanzees are up there, chimpanzee saliva. Gorillas and macaques are all over the place there, but humans are kind of inhabit just a very small portion of that, showing that the saliva of people and our ape-like ancestors, quote unquote, is not the same. This individual said in Molecular Biology and Evolution, October 2019, we found that humans produce a waterier saliva. Is that a word, waterier? Waterier saliva, containing less than half total protein than great apes and old world monkeys. Interesting. Yeah, and human saliva is about 99.5% water. We discovered unique protein profiles in saliva of humans that were what, class? Distinct from those of non-human primates. So when it comes to saliva, again, and our whole makeup is so different than chimpanzees. And then this is something is histological cross-section of some of the salivary glands in people there. Okay, so are our appendix and tonsils useless? Again, when I was in school, this is what they taught. As a matter of fact, let me just kind of go back here. When I was in graduate school at the University of Northern Colorado, I was taking a class called histology, and histology is the study of tissues, if I can get back here. So I took a class in histology, and we studied some of the histological cross-sections of these tissues you find in the human body. And our professor was a USDA-inspected, dyed-in-the-wool evolutionist. And he said, there was only 6 of us in the class at this university called histology, and he said, you all must write a paper on the ultrastructure of some type of tissue in your body. So I told him I was going to do it on the appendix. And guess what he said? No, you're not going to do that. And I said, why not? And he said, the appendix is a useless vestige. It's no good. Don't waste your time writing on the appendix. And so I did on astrocytes, which are some cells of the brain there. But our tonsils are very, very important. And the appendix is important as well. Writing in 2009, if Darwin had been aware of the species that had an appendix attached to a large cecum, and if he had known about the widespread nature of the appendix, he probably would not have thought of the appendix as a vestige of evolution. That comes from an evolutionist himself, a guy by the name of Choi, in Live Science, August 24th, 2009. And then Saladin said, a while back, but it's in the human anatomy text, he said the appendix is densely populated with lymphocytes and is a significant source of immune cells, like lymphocytes that get programmed by the appendix. And so this is a cross-section of the appendix, and it is just full of lymphatic tissue, very important. Can you live without your appendix? Yeah, but you'd do better if you had it. That's what we're saying. Can you live without your arms? Yeah, but you'd do better if you had it, okay? That's our point. So if you have your appendix, try and keep it, unless, of course, there's an artery there that can get occluded, that is blocked, and then cause problems, and then you'll have to have it taken out. Keep it, though, if you can. Let's see now. How are we doing for time, Pastor Ben? Are we good? Okay. Duke scientists and collaborators from the University of Arizona and Arizona State University, in the rare times they actually agreed, U of Arizona and Arizona State, conclude that Darwin was what? Wrong. The appendix is a whole lot more than an evolutionary remnant. Amen and amen. That's what we've been saying for decades and decades, ladies and gentlemen. We've been saying that God doesn't make any junk. And now, all of a sudden, these individuals are going, yeah, Darwin was wrong. And the appendix is a whole lot more than an evolutionary remnant. Well, yeah, for the reasons I told you, for example, lymphatic tissue and all that. So this is a diagram of your appendix. It's at the cecum, and it's a small bit of tissue, but it helps to help with your what we call the biome inside your large intestine. The appendix is densely populated with lymphocytes and immune cells. Keep your tonsils. It wasn't long ago when tonsils were routinely removed in children, partly from the belief that they were useless vestiges of an evolutionary past. That is completely and utterly false. What creationists, we now call it evolutionary medical malpractice. That's what it is. When you start following what evolutionists say and start taking out tissues and organs from your body that God has placed there when? In the beginning. And so that certainly is medical error in what we call evolutionary medical malpractice. The 9.4% argument, okay, that people in chimpanzees have 98.4% the same DNA. People in chimpanzees have 98.4% the same DNA. That's absolutely false. Let's remember, your entire genetic complement is called your genome. Genomes are not recipes. A creature that shares 98.4% of DNA with humans is not 98.4% human, any more than a fish that shares, say, 40% is 40% human. So remember I said earlier that maybe 40% of the genome of a fish has the same DNA we have. Well, yeah, it's because that DNA codes for enzymes, for example, that help with breaking down proteins, carbohydrates, and fat. It's got nothing to do with evolution, everything to do with what? A common designer, a common designer. So we share half our genes with the banana. Who said that? Robert May. He's a chief UK scientist. He said it 23 years ago. He's quoted, as you see there, in New Scientist magazine, volume 167. All right. So, yeah, this whole idea just doesn't make any sense from an evolutionary perspective. So, yeah, we share half our genes with the banana. If you want to go online, ICR.org, we're selling this book called Contested Bones. It is a hard-hitting book, easy to read. And chapter 13 talks about the genetic evidence. We're running out of time here now, but this is an outstanding book to have. And you can read about the 4 profound genetic problems with ape-to-man evolution. Folks, I'm going to stop right there, and I want to show you a few books we have on the book table, and then we'll see how it goes from there. This is a book on the fossil record. This is a book I wrote, and also with Dr. John Morris. This is an excellent book that discusses the fossils, and I wrote about the last 1/3 of the book on so-called missing links. And evolutionists, of course, list a lot of what they feel is missing links. And so I went through the secular evolutionary literature and found out why those are not missing links at all. So if you want, are you interested in that, read the last 1/3 of this book, The Fossil Record. This is a coffee table book. This is what people find very, very interesting, and so that's available. Also, we have a book out there called Fascinating Creatures. And so I wrote several of the articles here called Fascinating Creatures, some amazing, amazing creatures in God's world that gives glory. We give glory to the Creator and not the creation, as the Apostle Paul says in Romans chapter 1. Then, since we've been talking about human evolution, this is Dr. Brian Thomas's book, Adam or Apes. So if you're interested in what I said in regard to human evolution, Dr. Brian Thomas adds a lot more to what I've said tonight. So from what you heard tonight, plus this DVD, it'll help you to get really well established in this whole business of so-called human evolution. Also, what I call the dinosaur pack is Uncovering the Truth About Dinosaurs, a DVD series. This is outstanding. This is what you want to share with your public school classes, your Sunday school classes. Just have it on your own. This is a whole series regarding dinosaurs. We love dinosaurs at ICR. We call them missionary lizards. And they're just phenomenal. This is a book on dinosaurs. Get the kids started on the right direction when it comes to these missionary lizards, these dinosaurs. This is a book that you want to curl up with your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, or just your pretty good grandkids. But anyway, they will enjoy reading through this book with you as well. And we love dinosaurs at ICR. Yes, dinosaurs went on the ark, and if they went on the ark, they also came off the ark. See how easy science is? Okay, they came off the ark, and then they migrated. Did dinosaurs migrate? Yeah, all animals can migrate to some extent. And these dinosaurs, after the Genesis flood, about 4,500 years ago, migrated to places like China. And the Chinese revere the dragon. Guess what the dragon probably was? A dinosaur. Can I prove it scientifically? No, I wouldn't even try to. But the legal historical evidence is there. And so avail yourself to these books. There's several others, but I think we're running out of time. And Heinz, I think I'll turn it over to you. Okay.
Okay, if you have a question, put up your hand, and maybe Frank can use, that one there. So put up your hand, and so everybody can hear your question and the answer as well.
I'll make the answers very short and sweet.
But we need.
We're the Institute for Creation Research. We're the Institute for Creation Research, not the Institute for Creation Answers. So.
Question, somebody?
Okay, the most common question, yes, okay, go ahead.
Yep.
Nice and loud.
So like stuff like Paleo Man or I don't know I'm blanking on the
Lucy,
yeah.
you're right, Lucy, Australopithecus afarensis.
Sure. Do you think that falls under like just an ape or a
Yes.
man? Okay.
We would look at Lucy, Australopithecus afarensis, is a genus species name, and say, based on the fossil evidence, and certainly we want to look at it too, we would say that Lucy is an extinct ape. She had long ape-like arms and long ape-like legs. Her skull was ape-like. Everything about Lucy, even her fingers, as we call them in Texas, call these fingers. Okay, she had long fingers as well. So everything about Lucy was ape-like, except the big question was, did Lucy walk upright? That's the linchpin right there. Did Lucy walk upright? And we will never know because Lucy became extinct over 2 million years ago. All we have are a partial portion, just portions of her fossilized skeleton. So we cannot say definitively that she walked upright. By the way, if you go to the San Diego Zoo, you go to the Hall of Apes there, and you will see the living pygmy chimpanzee walks upright approximately 10% of the time. You can tell she doesn't like to. There you go, a living, breathing ape that does walk upright occasionally. And so, yeah, that was a big deal about Lucy. So, question, what would we as creationists say Lucy was? We'd say she's an extinct ape. Okay.
Okay, other questions there that you might have? Yeah.
Young man in the red
Yep.
shirt there.
Put up your hand if you have a question and I'll get to you.
So my question is, how can we, today kids are taught that dinosaurs are millions of years old. There's, or the time of evolution is millions and millions of years. I guess what I'm asking is, that's taught to them as a fact. How can we empower them to, from a creation standpoint, to say that dinosaurs, or tell the creation story?
Yeah. Boy, I am very glad you asked that question. That's a good question. Do we have any other questions? No. Hey, we can have fun tonight, okay? Yes. Let me see a show of hands, please, this evening. Who has heard of soft dinosaur tissue? Raise your hands, please. Okay, there's a sprinkling of people. It's, as we say in Texas, sprinkling. Folks, they have been finding now dozens of examples of soft dinosaur tissue. You go online to Google search, especially images, type in 3 words, soft dinosaur tissue, step back and be amazed. Because you will see all sorts of pictures of soft, gooey, slimy dinosaur tissue that came from dinosaur fossils. And so I'm not saying that this is proof of a young Earth, but it is certainly compelling evidence for a young Earth because evolutionists say that dinosaurs became extinct 66 million years ago. 66 million years ago, dinosaurs became extinct. And what do they say caused the extinction? A giant asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, sending up a huge cloud that killed all the dinosaurs. It was a very selective extinction. Didn't kill all the fish, didn't kill all the birds, didn't kill all the reptiles or amphibians or mammals, just those pesky dinosaurs. But the point is that they say that's what killed the dinosaurs. But folks, we're finding soft dinosaur tissue now a lot. And soft dinosaur tissue does not last even 500,000 years. Now, I've had histology, the study of tissues, both as a graduate student and as an undergraduate student as well. I'm here to tell you, you're not going to have soft dinosaur tissue even last 500,000 years. And so to have all these repeated examples and instances of finding soft dinosaur tissue, but also soft tissue of other creatures that supposedly lived ever so many millions of years ago, there's something wrong with that dating. And by the way, we love at ICR carbon-14 dating. Okay, carbon-14 dating, you can look it up on the website. Carbon-14 dating is only good for thousands of years. And so we have asked diplomatically, kindly, the evolutionary community, listen, would you please carbon-14 date that soft dinosaur tissue because it's carbon-based, okay? It's got carbon. That's the backbone of biomolecules. And their answer is what? No. We know, they say, and I'm not putting words in their mouth, we know, they say, that dinosaurs existed for many millions of years earlier, and therefore we won't carbon-14 date the soft tissue. Well, why not? I mean, humor us. So what creation scientists did is we got our own samples of soft dinosaur tissue, and we went through a third party, to laboratories throughout the country and asked them to carbon date this soft tissue. We didn't tell them it was dinosaur tissue, and the results came back in just thousands of years. It's not proof of an old Earth, but it's certainly compelling evidence. So I appreciate that question. So remember, 3 words in Google search tonight: soft dinosaur tissue. One other, I want to preempt anybody, and we're out of time, but I want to talk about starlight and time. Remember, you hear about that, and oh boy, you know, we see stars out there. It took untold millions of years to reach us. That's not the whole story, folks. We have to understand that we don't really understand the nature of gravity, and we don't understand fully the nature of light. Gravity and light. There's still a lot of work to be done there. And also the situation with Einstein's theory of relativity. And so all of that comes into play. A good friend of mine, Jason Lyle, a PhD, he did his research on the sun, our sun, found some original discoveries about the sun from the University of Colorado years ago. But Jason Lyle has his idea called the one-way speed of light. The one-way speed of light. So that's something to look up. But also, I want to tell you that the evolutionists also have a problem with starlight and time if they appeal to a Big Bang. With this Big Bang idea, you also have as significant a problem with starlight and time as the creationists allegedly do. So there's still work to be done there. If you go to icr.org and type in starlight time in the search, you can get all sorts of good answers on that. One more question, and I think we're done.
Okay, another question. Raise your hand for the last question here.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for the discussion and the Q&A. And let me just wrap up with a few thoughts. Frank was mentioning about where do you get answers. Well, of course, you can go to icr.org, but also on apologeticsforum.org, we have a menu item called Find Answers. Click on that, enter your question in there, in that box, and you'll get all the biblical answers, you know, distant starlight, dinosaur tissue, and, you know, human evolution, all that. You can get all the answers, the biblical answers that the different ministries have provided. Another thing that I like to emphasize is, I know young people like to use mobile apps. Well, we have 6 mobile apps on our website that we recommend, and one of them is ICR and CMI, and also Genesis Apologetics, which has a great set of information about evolution, how you refute evolution. So look on our website, apologeticsforum.org, go to resources, and under there you'll see mobile apps, and it'll tell you how to download all those mobile apps. Great way to get answers. So with that, we're going to bring that to a close. Remind you that the ICR does have a lot of different resources on their tables there. Frank mentioned some of them here, but there are many more different books there. And the Apologetics Forum, we have resources as well from all the other ministries that you can avail yourself of. So take a look at that. So let me just close in a word of prayer, and then we'll be dismissed. Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you that for ICR's ministry, for Frank's talk here, and we pray that you just bless the results of this talk that he just gave, and bless the results of the other meetings he has coming up over the next 4 days. And we pray that you would just uphold him through that. We've got him a very busy schedule, and we just appreciate what he does. Appreciate ICR, appreciate the other ministries, and also the Apologetics Forum. We provide another slant as well. Thank you for the audience, Lord, and just bless them as they've learned what they have here and be able to share that with their friends, colleagues, and family. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Heinz. Yep.